Number 5, limit your whole fruit. By limit, I mean no more than 1 small serving per day. Maybe we can increase that to 2 or 3 a few weeks or months down the road. Your glucometer will tell you if that's possible, but for now, you must limit your whole fruit consumption. This eat your fruits and vegetables nonsense, it's nonsense. Should be eat your vegetables, not your fruits. Look, Mother Nature provides fruits at only one time of the year, in the fall. Why is that? Well, Mother Nature knows that sugars trigger production of insulin, and we know what insulin does. It's the fat storage hormone, so it builds body fat. That's what allows animals in the wild to prepare for winter. Fattens their body, they live off the body fat until spring comes, there's new grass and twigs and things for the animals to eat. We're animals too. Our bodies are going to respond the same way. Our bodies are not designed to have a blast, a continual barrage of carbohydrates and sugars continually. No. So limit your whole fruit. And the last one, severely limit the grain-based foods. All grains, corn, wheat, rye, oats, barley, they are all exceedingly high in carbohydrate. Corn runs 82% carbohydrate, wheat about 80, oats about 78. You eat any of the foods made of these, the breads, the cereals, and the pastas over here, you're going to dump vast quantities of glucose in your carbohydrates in your bloodstream. So you can't do that. You know, when I talk to people and they call, like I mentioned the gal in Wisconsin, after she told me her story, I asked her a question, which is the same question I ask almost everyone. I said, okay, help me to understand. What exactly did you eat for breakfast this morning? And I hear the same answer almost every time. And that's because doctors and dietitians are telling diabetics to do this. And so everybody's doing what they're told. And when I ask her that, you could hear her almost puff up with pride on the other end of the line. Like, oh, this part I'm doing right. Let me tell you what I'm doing. She said, oh, Ken, it's simple. This morning I had slow cook oatmeal. I had some low fat milk. I had a small dish of blueberries and a cup of coffee. Holy cow. I said, are you kidding me? What? I'm doing just what I was. What's the matter with that? That's a perfect breakfast, right? I said, no. You could hardly have eaten a more damaging breakfast if you had tried. She couldn't hardly believe it. I said, come on now. Think with me. What's oatmeal made of? Oats. Oats is about 78% carbohydrate. Bam! You're dumping maybe, at the very least, you're dumping 10 grams, maybe 20 or 30 grams of carbohydrate just in the oatmeal. And then you're going to pour milk on there, lactose, there's some more. Then you're going to eat blueberries, a fruit that's almost 100% sugar, there's more. And yes, I know, blueberries, the great superfood, packed with phytonutrients, that's all true. But for a diabetic, the sugar is killing you. You can't do that. And she wondered why, with all the metformin, with all the supplemental insulin, her glucose was still running 165 that morning. Well, she's driving it with the food she's eating. And I began to educate her on how to change that. I've actually had people tell me they'd rather live with their French fries, their Coke, and their bagels after we talked. They'd actually rather live inside this myth rather than break out and give their bodies a fighting chance. I can understand that decision, but I tell you, I can't respect it. Ignorance is one thing. I'll grant you that. But continuing to do what's harming you after you've become aware of it is quite another. It's just a cop-out. Healthy people do healthy things. Look, this is simple stuff, but it's not always easy. I know that. But since when did everything worthwhile have to be easy? We've become like drug addicts. We won't see the error of our ways because we're caught up in the addiction. But once we take the responsibility, the personal responsibility, break out of the addiction, then it's all so simple. Diabetes tells you you've been doing something very wrong for a very long time. We've only got to change those things to reverse it. We know that from literature, from the clinical studies, and our own experience. That's our hope. Being diabetic doesn't have to mean 50, fat, and defeated. It can mean 50, fabulous, and ready to take on life with all the hope you've ever had. So, make the change. Decide in your mind. Get it done. Like Yoda said, do or do not. There is no try. Okay, let's take a look at the 6 do's. We saw the 6 don'ts. Now let's take a look at the 6 do's. You need to eat protein with every meal. Many Americans eat meals that are almost nothing but carbohydrate anymore. That's got to stop. Protein with every meal, basically 5 sources of protein. Here they are: meats, nuts, eggs, cheeses, nuts. This gal in Wisconsin says, after I talked to her, I asked her about her, she told me about her breakfast. And she says, well, Ken, what in the world am I supposed to eat then? I said, well, you need to eat foods that are high in protein and fat, very low in carbohydrate. I said, why don't you try a ham and cheese omelet instead? And if you want to put in some celery and some onions and peppers in there, wonderful. Vegetables, low carbohydrate, barely contribute any grams of carbohydrate at all in that case. So there's a breakfast. Ham and cheese omelet, high in protein, high in fat, no problem, all healthy things, 0 carbohydrate. Wonderful. Breakfast of champion for a diabetic. Heavens, it's not much different than the breakfast I eat. Number 2, you've got to eat healthy fats with every meal. We talked about the French fries and the trans fats. That's not the healthy fats. Those are the killing fats. You've got to eliminate that. But our bodies must have fat to survive. These fats are the building blocks for many of the things in our body, including hormones and collagen and plasma membranes in our cell walls and all kinds of things too numerous to mention. The healthy fats are generally considered to be one of 2 what we call essential fatty acids. There are 2 of them. Alpha-linolenic, and that's the one that you've probably heard tell about. Called W3s or omega-3s. That's the alpha-linolenic of the 2 essential fatty acids. This is the building block which our bodies must have. The problem is that's 99% lacking in the typical American diet. Where do we find the stuff? Well, we find it primarily in flax and other seeds. Flax oil, flax meal, is nature's richest naturally occurring source of alpha-linolenic acid, or W3s. There are other similar fats that are good for us, like the fish oils, so those are good. They're not exactly the same as the essential fatty acids, but they're close enough for now. We also need to get some of the monounsaturated fats. The W3s are largely the poly or superunsaturated. We need to get some of the monounsaturated. Those we can find in things like extra virgin olive oil, avocados, things like that. Some other sources of the W3s might be borage oil. We talked about flax, but you might find it also in borage oil, evening primrose oil, hemp oil, things like this. Include healthy fats every meal. Good salad dressing. Some good flax oil with vinegar. Eat vegetables every day. Heavens, eat it with every meal if you can. Here's a good picture, but I want to guide your attention here. There's some sweet corn here. We don't need sweet corn. Ever. Here's some carrots. We've got to be careful with the root crops. The ones that you can eat as a diabetic, especially in the early days, are the dark green leafy greens, the above ground vegetables. And eat these with every meal if you can. Okay? Number 4, get 3 meals a day with no snacks in between. Now, I know some of you have heard about this 4, 5, 6 small meals during the day. I'm going to tell you, that's nonsense. The Paleolithic diet and our ancient ancestors were not worried about eating 4, 5, or 6 small meals a day. Come on. They were lucky if they ate once a day. Our bodies are not meant to be smothered in dietary carbohydrates, triggering pancreas working to release insulin almost 24 hours a day. That makes no sense at all. Come on, think of this. No more than 3 meals a day. This gives your body a chance to rest, your pancreas a chance to rest. It gives that insulin glucagon axis or hormonal balance the ability to actually work. Because you see, for most diabetics, their glucose is so high, their pancreas never is called upon to produce glucagon ever. And that's why we get into the long-term problems we do. So 3 meals a day, no snacks in between. Try to have the last meal no sooner than 4 hours before you go to bed. 5 would be better. There's a whole reason behind this, but I won't get into it in this discussion. Number 5, get fit. Come on, this is, again, information we've all known. It's just time to put it into action. There is no substitute for physical activity. It is one of those things you simply must do to save your life. Lastly, take Center 5. We talked about it briefly in the opening slide. You can read more about this incredible product on our website. In a sentence or in a simple statement, Center 5 is the most effective product for promoting normal blood glucose of any product ever tested. Well, seems the emperor has no clothes. The big dangerous myths we've all been told don't seem to be so tough now, do they? Sunshine tends to do that. Now for my final and maybe most important point, I want you to listen very, very carefully. I need to leave you with a serious warning. If you decide to make some of the changes in your lifestyle, your diet and activity level that we've talked about over the last 40 minutes or so, you need to be aware that the protocol we've described is incredibly effective. Your blood glucose levels will drop dramatically. And if you are currently a type 2 diabetic using some oral meds and or insulin, you need to make sure to modify those existing dosage levels before you institute the changes that we've talked about here today. You see, once the intake of dietary carbohydrates is reduced, the need for your medications, diabetic medications, will also be greatly reduced. And if you don't reduce those prior to reducing your dietary carbohydrates, then you can drop into a very low blood glucose situation. We call that hypoglycemia. It can result in coma and or death. So this is very serious business. So what I want you to do is to make sure you talk to a knowledgeable medical professional before embarking on these ideas that we've discussed here. I say knowledgeable because I've had the chance to talk with dozens of doctors and medical professionals over the years, and many of those good people are simply so busy doing what they're doing, they aren't fully aware of some of the concepts we've talked about today. So find someone who can guide you through these concepts in a very knowledgeable way. Thank you for your attention today. I hope you've gotten the information here today that will allow you to change from 50 fat and defeated to 50 fabulous and ready to take on life. Good luck.